All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Sports Corner at Choose Adventure Media. My name is Zach, as always. Today, I'll be recapping the game that we just watched. Oregon loses at home to the Indiana Hoosiers in a really good top 10 matchup game. Kurt Signetti got his team really well prepared. I think our defense played really well, but in this live stream, I'll be giving my thoughts. As always, please let me know in the chat what did you guys think about the game? What were you most disappointed in? What were you excited about? And also in this live stream, I'll be talking about where do the Ducks kind of go from here, what the rest of their schedule looks like, what the rest of their season looks like, what this means for their season. So I think first, what I want to get into is let's not overreact. All right, I was reading the Oregon Ducks subreddit before I came live, and a lot of people are saying, okay, now I can go back to my normal day-to-day life and not expect a national championship. Now I'm worried about losing on the road to Iowa. People were really hitting the doomsday button. So as I hope you guys know by now, that's not really my speed. I'm not going to be overreacting to stuff. Like a lot of the fans in the SEC do. Indiana's a very good football team, right? Like, we knew this. They've lost, 3 games over the last 2 seasons? Or, I'm sorry, 2 games over the last 2 seasons. They're a very well-coached team. They have a lot of really good players that we saw today. And frankly, our offense just wasn't prepared for today. I'm going to go deeper into it. Obviously, the offensive line, I think, was the most disappointing unit that we saw. And that's not an overreaction. I'm also just kind of questioning why we didn't do a better job of force feeding our star playmakers like Kenyon Sadiq and Decorien Moore. I'm a little disappointed in Will Stein that he isn't able to manufacture for touches for Decorien Moore in zone situations. Indiana's a very zone-heavy defense, and yet Decorien Moore, I feel like Will Stein does a really good job of getting him open in man situations. But if they play zone, it's like Decorien Moore is kind of taken out of the play. And I think that was kind of one of the big factors of the day. I think just something about Dante. We after the Penn State game, we talked a lot about Dante Moore's poise, and I think today is kind of the opposite, right? Like, we saw a guy who was making his 11th start in a top 10 matchup at home, coming off of a big win. Just something about the offense. They never really had that swag that we've become accustomed to seeing. I think the defense absolutely had that swag, and I'm not putting anything on the defense really. Fernando Mendoza is one of the top college football quarterbacks. He's most likely going to go at least in the first round, if not first overall. And I think this game will vault him into number one NFL draft pick consideration. And the offensive line was really disappointing today, really from the start. We weren't able to generate the run game. That's so pivotal. I feel like in the first half, we again see Will Stein calling plays to not lose the game, right? Like, I said this in the Penn State game, is I don't think they opened up the offense enough. And then I think by the second half, I think the Indiana defense had kind of already keyed in, and it was too late at that point. Will Stein did a phenomenal job on the touchdown drive where he set up the big play action, or the big play down the middle. But the offensive line was incredibly disappointing. Dier Hill really didn't play much. I don't know what was going on there. I was thinking in the first half that Will Stein really wanted to run a lot of power and kind of wear down the Indiana defense to set up for Dier Hill in the second half, and set up a lot of the outside stuff. That never really manifested. I'm pretty disappointed in the offense. Indiana's defense didn't do anything that they haven't done all season, right? It's not like they completely changed their tune. They played a lot of zone. We knew this coming into it, and they had a lot of exotic blitzes and stuff. And again, we knew that coming into this. They have really talented playmakers in that front seven. And the Ducks seemed almost shocked by it. I feel like the Ducks offense came into this game a little confident and underprepared. The defense, I think, was phenomenal. I'm not putting this loss on the defense at all. Really, up until the two interceptions at the end, they had given up what, 23 points, something. They had given up 20 points until the couple interceptions at the end. And it's whenever you're playing a team this talented and a team that has put up 48 points on average in all of their games and putting up over 500 yards of offense, I'm sorry, that loss is not on the defense. I think Austin was bouncing, was a great environment. I'm gonna briefly touch on the referees and how the game was called. I think it was called fairly fair and consistent, and that's really all you can hope for with the umpires is be consistent, right? The CBS broadcasters were kind of driving me nuts a little bit. Gary Danielson, he kept wanting to get that call on the defensive line stemming, and for those of you that don't know, so it's a thing, a lot of other schools do it, is the defensive line before the snap will shift, and they'll all do it at the same time. They do it very abruptly, and it's to do exactly what it caused today, was the false starts. However, Oregon's not the only school that does it, first of all. Second of all, Gary Danielson was asking for calls that don't get made in other places. Is it probably a penalty? Yes. Does it get called consistently? No. So why are you going to call it against the Ducks in this game in a big top 10 matchup when they haven't been getting called all season? Like that's not how refereeing works, right? Like you just want consistency. And I feel like overall, I feel like the calls were pretty consistent. There were a lot of pass interference calls. And I think in general they were pretty fair. There were very subtle nuances that were called, whenever the Ducks were called for pass interference that weren't called on Indiana, and it's just because there were subtle nuances that make them pass interference versus not pass interference. So don't want to call this game the fault of the refs. I don't want to call this game the fault of the defense. I think the defense played phenomenal, and as well as you can expect, they held Fernando Mendoza, possibly the number 1 overall draft pick in the upcoming NFL draft, to 20 of 31, so below 67% completion percentage, 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Yeah, that's all. That's the best you can hope for with the experienced wide receivers that Fernando Mendoza has, with the brilliant offensive minds that they have over there in Mike Shanahan and Kurt Signetti. This loss is not on the defense at all. I'm sorry. Realistically, the defense gave up 20 points because I'm not going to count those 2 garbage ones at the end where Dante threw interceptions and set them up really well with field position. I mean, they held the best Indiana running back had 19 carries for 70 yards, averaging 3.7. He had 2 touchdowns, but a lot of them were on the goal line. I feel like the only criticism I have of the defense was, and this goes for offense too, is coming into this game, everyone knew on defense you need to find their number 46, that's Isaiah Jones, and then on offense you need to find their number 3, and that's Omar Cooper. And I feel like in the second quarter they did a really good job of shutting down Omar Cooper in the first quarter, and then Indiana was like, hey, he's our best playmaker, let's get him the ball. And they did that in the second quarter, and that's their first big long touchdown drive that we saw. He just got first down after first down after first down. And then in the second half, the Oregon Duck defense did a phenomenal job of shutting down Omar Cooper. He's one of the more explosive players in college football, and they held him to 7 receptions for 58 yards and 8.3. That's about as best as you can hope for. As a result, I think some of Omar Cooper's yards kind of went to their other wide receiver, Elijah Surratt. He's more of an Emeka Egbuka type guy, like a very good safety valve, right? Like he's a quarterback's best friend, and I think so. Some of the Omar Cooper touches went to Elijah Surratt. But I think the defense really played as well as you can expect, especially coming out of halftime. They came out with their hair on fire, and I think they played really well, and they played with a lot of confidence. They were firing off the ball. They were, just playing with swag, and the offense just never did. I don't know what it was. They never really seemed confident in the game plan. They were never really firing off the ball. I never really got the vibe that they had against Penn State of like, we're going to smack you in the mouth because we're stronger than you. And I'm going to be honest, I think Oregon does have the better athletes. I still feel that way even after what happened today. And I think we saw that a lot of times on defense. Was the defensive line did a solid job with their offensive line. And I think definitively, I think Oregon defensive line still has better athletes than the Indiana offensive line. However, the Oregon offense just wasn't firing on all cylinders. They were not going to the run enough, and that was a little disappointing, especially in the second quarter. The Oregon Ducks averaged 7.5, I believe, somewhere around there, yards per carry, specifically in the second quarter. And as a team, they finished rushing. They averaged 2.7 yards per rush, with only 30 rushing attempts. So I feel like that was a little bit disappointing too. But overall, the Ducks just kind of seemed to be going through the motions on offense. They weren't firing off the ball. I feel like they weren't playing at game speed. I think Brandon Finney Jr. is a bright spot, and I want to highlight more bright spots because on social media over the next week, there's going to be a lot of negativity about this Oregon Ducks team and a lot of questioning about what this Oregon Ducks team is. And I'm honestly not looking at them any differently than I did coming into this game. They are a very young team on offense. In fact, we knew this, right? And against Penn State, they went into a very tough environment, and they played above their age. They played probably above their skill level against a Penn State team that mentally is not as strong and as really resilient as this Oregon Ducks team is. However, the Oregon Ducks have a chance to prove moving forward that they're not Penn State. They don't have the same weaknesses. You can't go 13-0 every season. Oregon's time came. Play calling was... I agree, burner account. I was not happy with the play calling on offense, and I don't think the defense was aggressive enough early on, and I think they were aggressive later on as kind of a last resort, and that's why I think they kind of got burned at the end, but I don't think they did a good enough job of mixing in blitzes and stuff like that. But Oregon, I think absolutely will prove moving forward that they are not Penn State. They do not have the same weaknesses as Penn State, that they are mentally resilient, that they're not divas, that they're not a bunch of drama queens, right? Like Denai Dennis Sutton and Drew Aller and all those guys, and they've let one loss turn into three now with losing to UCLA, and then I don't know if you guys saw, they've also lost to Northwestern today at home. So I think the Ducks do have a little bit of work cut out for themselves, right? We know this moving forward. There isn't a whole lot of meat left on the bones with their schedule. They have USC coming up at the end of the year. They have Washington at the end of the year. They've got a couple of tricky road games going on the road to Iowa. So moving forward, I think this Oregon Ducks team will prove their resilience, prove that they still are in that top tier of college football. It's just going to prove that Indiana absolutely deserves to belong in that tier as well. No one knew that this Indiana team really belonged in that top tier until this game, right? They had a lot of tough games. They obviously beat the crap out of Illinois. They won a tough one at Iowa. That's always a tough game to play. And I'm gonna be honest, I kind of got tricked too, because I rewatched the Indiana-Illinois game, and I rewatched the Indiana-Iowa game. And in those games, you see the other team really not playing well. A lot of blown coverages, not firing off the ball. So I really thought, like, man, this Indiana team has really benefited from a lot of bad football. And we saw today that Curt Cignetti's method works. He has a lot of veterans on his team. He's a really good coach. His team is very well coached. Great play calling on their part, great schemes on their part, and honestly just better scheme and play calling on their part than Oregon's. Again, I'm not putting too much on the defense. Obviously, anytime you give up points, technically that, the defense's job is to not allow points. But this Indiana team came in averaging over 500 yards of offense and 48 points on offense, and you hold them to realistically 20. I think that's a win for the defense. It's just the offense can't, have 186 yards passing and 81 yards rushing. So 267 yards of offense, something like that. You can't have 267 yards of offense and expect to win a top 10 matchup. Dante Moore Moore showed a glimpse of his UCLA version. I agree, burner account. I'm not going to go that far. I'm going to say that he showed that he's still starting his 11th game, right? Like everything that he showed in the Penn State game, He showed some of it today, but he showed that he's still not consistently producing at that level, and that's really his next step: is can you consistently play at that level? That's the ones that make the good ones great. Isn't just a lot of people can throw the ball accurately. A lot of people have a strong arm. A lot of people can scramble. A lot of people, some people can read defense as well. It's going to be, can you do that consistently? And today, Dante Moore showed that he didn't, at least right now. I don't want to overreact. I'm not going to say that Dante Moore is the UCLA version and that we should bench him. I'm not going to say that he's the worst quarterback and, you know, he should transfer. I'm not going to say he's Nico Iamaleava. Like, I'm not an inflammatory overreact channel. That's absolutely not what I am, and I don't think that's realistic. The Oregon Ducks lost a top 10 matchup by 10 points at home, which is tough. That's a tough loss. I think it hurts. It hurts a lot of Ducks fans. They had the nation's longest home winning streak. They had one of the longest active, I believe the longest active regular season win streak in the country. So this one hurts. A lot of Ducks fans were feeling, I would say, honestly, more confident than they were last year after they beat Ohio State at home, because the Ohio State win kind of had an asterisk on it because of the whole, did Will Howard get down in time, call a timeout, field goal shenanigans, and then obviously the Ducks lost to them in the Rose Bowl. So technically, yes, burner account, I agree. Moore did show a glimpse into his UCLA version, but I don't think he's that guy anymore. He also didn't have a lot of help. Let me know in the chat, what else were you guys disappointed in? What bright spots did you guys see? What do you guys think this means for the Ducks moving forward and the Ducks season moving forward? What are your expectations now for the Ducks moving forward? Jamari Johnson's kind of driving me nuts. He's one of those players that he will make the phenomenal play, like he had on the shovel pass touchdown, I believe it was an overtime against Penn State, where he plays hero ball, but then he had an early kind of naked boot out to the left that he dropped, and it's like, please just make the routine plays. Like, I would trade some of the hero ball plays for some of the, you know, consistent, if it hits your hands, catch it and run with the ball. It stings even more when you let Indiana get their first ever. Yep, I forgot that one, burner account. Yep. Forgot that one too. For those of you that don't know, Indiana coming into this game was 0-46. 0-46 in road games against top 5 opponents, and they got their first win ever. Chris Harder said Indiana D-line is legit. They destroyed Illinois O-line. I agree, yes. This Indiana D-line does have a lot of playmakers on it, and I think they proved that they are legit. However, coming into this game, everyone knew you need to figure out where number 46 is at all times on every single play. Isaiah Jones, they have a lot of great playmakers, but Isaiah Jones, their outside linebacker, is their best playmaker. He's their ultimate chaos causer, like big playmaker. Why is he coming off the edge unblocked pretty consistently? Or same thing with what's the number 13 guy? He's top 25 in tackles for loss this year. And number 13, Kellen Wyatt, the guy that got hurt. Why is he coming off the edge unblocked? They were exotic blitzes, but still something that Dante Moore, I feel like, should have the ability to identify pre-snap. They weren't doing a whole lot post-snap, at least with their blitzes. So that's a little concerning, at least from a game plan perspective. I don't know what Will Stein was really thinking. Like, this defense didn't do anything that they haven't done all year. Like you said, Chris Harder, Indiana destroyed Illinois' offensive line. And there were a lot of times today that they frankly destroyed the Oregon Ducks offensive line, which coming into this game had only given up 1 sack. A lot of people really thought that they were one of the best in the country. People were thinking that there would be multiple first-round picks on this offensive line. And now I think there's more questions about the Oregon offensive line than there is about Dante or really anything else. I don't know why Decorian Moore only had 4 receptions for 39 yards. I don't know why Kenyon Sadiq had 2 receptions for 21 yards. In my previous live streams, I think I've said that I think Will Stein has done an excellent job of not doing what Chip Kelly did last year at Ohio State. Like, last year at Ohio State, there were a lot of times where people were like, you have the best wide receiver in Jeremiah Smith, literally force feed him the ball. Like, make him run a 3-yard route and get him the ball just because he's such a dynamic playmaker. And the Ducks have a lot of dynamic playmakers, and I think today they weren't doing enough of the easy stuff. Like we saw early on, in I believe it was the second half, is there was this easy, just classic play action boot to the right, get Kenyon Sadiq the ball, and it got an easy first down. And usually the Ducks offense is really predicated on that stuff, setting up those deep, those deep explosive plays, or setting up the deep explosive run plays. And today they just weren't doing enough of the easy stuff, and they were making the easy stuff look hard. That was the stuff I think that's something that's really disappointing from an Oregon Ducks fan perspective, is that the Penn State game, everyone thought they were beyond that, right? Like, that's one of the things that makes a team into that top tier, is making the easy things look easy and making the harder things sometimes look easy. The Ducks didn't do that today, and that's why they lost. Is they didn't have enough of the easy stuff. They didn't have enough of the easy plays to move the ball against a very talented Indiana defense. I think that's really the storyline, is the Indiana defense is really experienced, and they have a lot of the Indiana defense has a lot of experience on that defense, and the Oregon offense is frankly very young. Like, yes, the Oregon offensive line has a lot of experience on it, but sorry, my stream is buffering. But the Oregon offense at their playmaker positions are very young. I've already said this before, but I frankly am really disappointed about it. Is DeCorian Moore is one of the best playmakers in college football. He proved that in the Penn State game. He didn't have a ton of big explosive plays, but he just had very clutch, very important moments where he made a big play. And today, I don't think Will Stein is doing a good enough job of getting DeCorian Moore the ball in zone situations. We saw it, I think it was in the Penn State game, where DeCorian Moore had a big play, and then on the next play, Penn State played zone, and DeCorian Moore kind of Dante Moore kind of sailed a pass in his direction, but misread the coverage. And I can't really think of a play right now off the top of my head where DeCorian Moore has gotten the ball in a zone whenever the defense plays zone. And if that's all the defense has to do is play zone and completely take out one of your best playmakers, that's a major red flag. Like, you should be able to get DeCorian Moore the ball in any situations. He's your number one receiver by far. Love Malik Benson, love Gary Bryant Jr., love Kenyon Sadiq, love our wide receivers, but DeCorian Moore is the number one. And you should be able to get him the ball in either zone or man situations. Not just, oh crap, the defense played zone, looks like DeCorian Moore's might as well not even be on the field. That's not effective play calling. The offense just did not. They just looked off, and I'm gonna turn this into a positive, right? Because that's what I want to do with this stream. I don't want to be a doomsdayer. I don't want to be a negative Nelly. There's gonna be plenty of that on ESPN. Gary Danielson and the broadcasters already think that about Oregon. Is that I think Dan Lanning can turn this into a positive, right? He said, we all saw in the Ohio State game last year what the power of getting hot at the right moment can do. It won Ohio State a national championship. Excuse me. It's all about when you get hot. You know, they were coming off a Michigan loss. They have very talented playmakers. I'm not saying that they didn't deserve the national championship. I'm just saying they were not playing well earlier on in the year, and that's why they lost to Oregon, and that's why they lost to Michigan at home in a big rivalry game. And then they got hot in the playoffs, and it won them a national championship. So Dan Lanning always says, pressure is a privilege, right? This is a privilege, is that the Ducks now have their backs against a wall, and I think every Oregon Ducks fan can agree, whenever Dan Lanning's back is against a wall, that's when he operates at arguably his best. So it's going to be really important that this young team doesn't let this one loss turn into multiple. So moving forward, The Oregon Ducks have, let's see, they have at Rutgers next week. You know, that can be tough going across the country. We saw Washington struggle with Maryland last week. And then they have Wisconsin at home, at Iowa. That's not a tough game, or that's not an easy game. Minnesota at home, and then USC at home and at Washington. Both are really tough games. So it's just don't get caught looking ahead, right? To at Iowa, don't get caught looking ahead to USC and Washington down the road, and let's handle business at Rutgers and not let one loss turn into three. What were some other positives that you guys saw today? I know there's a lot of negatives, but I think Tatum Tuioti really proved how elite and how talented he is, especially in the second half. I think Indiana did a good job of shutting down Matayo and Tatum in the first half, and really Matayo the entire game. Matayo only had one tackle. There were a couple of plays where Matayo stunted in there and got penetration and really blew up some run plays. But overall, Matayo was really quieted today by this Indiana offense. I think Indiana, in the same ways that Oregon's offensive play calling wasn't great, I think Indiana's defensive play calling and I think Indiana's offensive play calling were just better. They have a really veteran team, a really experienced team, and the coaches just coached better. Obviously, the game's completely different with stuff like Sappington not missing the field goal in the first half. I think Jaden Lamar had a great bounce back game. In my last live stream at the Penn State game, we were talking about how Jaden Lamar was struggling a little bit, and that he, probably lost some of his touches there, but did a good job of bouncing back today, and he was really grinding out. I think Decorine Moore showed that he's very strong, and that's a big consideration whenever you're playing a true freshman, especially at a skill position, especially with a speedy guy. Is he strong enough to play in live action? And I think he proved that he is a very strong guy at his size, 5'11", 200 pounds, something like that. I think Jordan Davison took a huge step forward for the Oregon Ducks, proving that it actually takes skill to be a power back. Like, it's not just he wasn't just a goal line merchant of benefiting, for 7 touchdowns down on the goal line. Like, he is patient, he is strong, and he is a great offensive weapon for this team moving forward. What else did you guys see that you guys were happy about? Is there anything I haven't mentioned that you guys were frustrated about? Let me know in the chat. I'm gonna pull up my notes from the game. Obviously, that Brandon Finney, I think, proved that he is one of the better corners in college football. I think he more than proved that today. He got tested a lot. Early on in the first half, was that pass interference on Brandon Finney? Yes, absolutely. Again, if we're going off what was consistently called throughout the game, that was not a consistent call with what the refs were calling throughout the game. So I agree that absolutely was pass interference on Brandon Finney. However, really, other than that, I don't know if he allowed a completion. And obviously he had the big interception. That's a really tough play to make that Brandon Finney made. He was effectively picked off by the umpire, and he had the closing speed to close in on Elijah Surratt and undercut an underthrown ball by Fernando Mendoza. That was really the only bad ball that Fernando Mendoza threw all day, and Brandon Finney made him pay for it. So Brandon Finney is a phenomenal weapon moving forward. I think Ife Obadegwu got burned a little bit, and some of his inexperience kind of got exposed a little bit. He's a big, long, physical receiver, so I hope that the kind of handsy behavior that was exposed a little bit, I hope that gets cleaned up, because that can be a really bad habit that can kind of ruin some guys' careers. So I trust Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning has coached some phenomenal DBs in his day, so I think he can get that cleaned up, and if Obadegwu can be an elite long weapon with his size. But I think that is another disappointing thing, is that the guys that you can't let beat you beat Oregon today. And by that I mean you can't let Isaiah Jones beat you. He's their best defensive player. Even Tyreek Tucker blew up a few plays. Kellen Wyatt These are all guys that you had to know coming into this that they were going to make plays, so you need to limit that as much as possible. And I don't think Will Stein did a good enough job doing that. This is the second game in a row I'm a little disappointed with Will Stein's play calling. Just because I don't think it's consistent with what we saw earlier on in the year. And I know I'm not an offensive coordinator, and I know it's not my team, and I know I'm not getting paid millions of dollars, right? But I don't see any reason why Will Stein couldn't have tried the same approach that he took to the earlier games to try in the second, in these big games. Like, he really didn't try that many down the field shots. We didn't see really a ton of back shoulder opportunities for Decorey Moore and the other wide receivers. And it was never proven to me that Indiana has the athletes on the outside to compete with Oregon. And in fact, we saw the opposite early on the first drive. It was a big 3rd and forever. I think it was like 3rd and 18. We saw the very stereotypical, 3-on-3. Dante Moore threw a swing screen out to the outside to Gary Bryant Jr. Garrett Bryant Jr. is able to break a tackle and go 20 yards and pick up this big long 3rd down. And Indiana had that play beat. They had the numbers. They blew up their blocks. They had the numbers, but they weren't able to tackle Gary Bryant Jr. And to me, that was a sign of like, okay, Oregon definitively has the better athletes on the outside. Let's expose that all game. Like, let's. It's the old adage of like, make them prove that they can stop it, right? And I don't know if they ever proved that they can consistently stop it. And that was a major, I think that kind of blew up the entire game plan of Will Stein. It was, yeah, I'm a little disappointed in Will Stein's play calling. Again, I'm not going to put this on Tosh Lupoy in the defense, but I'm disappointed in the offensive game plan. And they honestly just looked like they came out flat-footed. I didn't really see a lot of fire. I didn't see a lot of that we saw on the defensive side, right? Like, we saw Bear Alexander playing out of his mind. I love Bear Alexander. He's proven to me that he is completely different than the versions of him that we saw at Georgia and at USC earlier on in his career. Brandon Finney played extremely well. Tatum Tuioti in the second half showed signs of life. Dylan Thieneman was all over the field. Bryce Betcher, always all over the field. I'm looking at the box score on offense, and I'm just trying to see like who to me showed that fire, who to me showed what they showed running out of the tunnel at Penn State, smiling at the crowd, getting the crowd pumped up in a whiteout in a very tough environment. Until Brandon Finney in the second half, like Dante Moore kind of seemed a little more flustered today than he showed against Penn State. Jordan Davison, I think, played well. Noah Whittington kind of played his typical physical style, but he didn't get enough touches. 5 touches for Noah Whittington. I don't like. Okay, so Dante Moore technically had 9 carries, but that's going to include sacks, right? I can't think of any designed quarterback runs to Dante Moore. So other than that, they only had 21 rushes. Like, I don't quite get that one. They had 34 passing attempts and 30 rushing attempts. And I know that's only 4 plays difference. And I guess that's technically not true. There were 34 pass attempts and then 30 run plays. But I think early on in the year, so far up until this game, Oregon's proved that the offense is predicated on getting the run going, and is predicated on being balanced. And the game didn't feel very balanced, and it felt like there were very few actual pass plays at the same time. Like, there weren't the big shots. There weren't even just medium passing plays. It was all just very short stuff. I'm happy to see Dante Moore checking down. That's a very mature thing, especially early on in the game. He recognized that the defense was going to try to take away the deep ball, so he consistently went to his checkdowns, and that's great. But that's to set up drawing in the defense and hitting the big explosive play like they did on the touchdown. So like I watched Stan Lanning's post-game interview before I came into the stream, and he was just saying basically the Indiana team made better adjustments than Oregon did at the half, and I think that was proven with a lot of the things that should be setup plays in the first half never really manifested into taking advantage of tendencies by the Indiana defense. I also don't think that there were enough designed plays to expose the Indiana zones and, put them into conflict by them playing a lot of zone coverage, which again, everyone in the stadium knew that Indiana was going to play a lot of zone coming into this game. And Will Stein, I don't know. I don't know if Will Stein doesn't have the plays. I don't know if Dante Moore, if he's just benefited from looking good against with having elite playmakers on the outside against teams that play a lot of man. I don't know. Maybe that's the case. Maybe Dante Moore has really relied on having great playmakers on the outside, and he doesn't know how to read zone. That could be it. I still don't think Will Stein put him in a very good position to succeed today. So moving forward, what does this mean for the Oregon Ducks season? Again, there's going to be a lot of doomsdayers. There's going to be a lot of Oregon is done. There's going to be a lot of Oregon's, should they even be ranked? Like, let's calm down. They lost a top 10 game. They are absolutely still a top 10 team in the country. They're going to benefit a lot from number 6 Oklahoma losing today. And I haven't checked the scores in about 30 minutes. So I'm going to check some college football scores. Georgia's in a tough one right now on the road. They're ranked number 10. And okay, so what does this mean? So Ole Miss, Ole Miss lost or almost lost a tough one at home to Washington State. That should drop them. Oklahoma lost to an unranked Texas team. That's ranked number 6. They'll be dropping. Missouri, they lost. They're ranked number 14. They lost to a talented Alabama team. But Alabama's big loss is going to look a lot worse because Florida State lost. So I think Oregon's going to benefit just in terms of AP ranking. And again, you guys know how I feel about the AP poll, but it's going to generate a lot of storylines as people only look at the AP poll and think, oh, Oregon must have looked like crap against Indiana. No. They just frankly got outcoached, and got exposed by being a young team. What else? What is the score of the LSU game? They're up right now 3-0 on South Carolina, but there's a long way to go in that game. Florida, Texas A&M. Florida, I think, absolutely can beat Texas A&M. Yeah, that game's 14-21, almost to the half. So, moving forward, this isn't a doomsday, right? Like, Oregon's going to be favored most likely in every game they have remaining. I think their next 4 games are very easily winnable. I really think this is an opportunity. I think last year's team didn't really... It was a weakness that they didn't lose because there's a lot of coachable moments in a loss. And we saw that, I think, in the Idaho game last year, is that the offensive line played like crap in that game. And in fact, I think it was Alik Terry, the offensive line coach. He made all the offensive players wear a t-shirt the entire week that said like 3.2 yards per carry, because that's all they could generate against FCS Idaho in a tough game last year. And then the offensive line played extremely well throughout the rest of the year. We saw multiple guys get drafted. So I think this is an opportunity. This isn't a doomsday. This is a needed thing that clearly worked for Ohio State last year, is that they lost to Oregon and Michigan, and they really benefited from those losses. And if you look at any of the teams that made the semifinals, Notre Dame lost to Northern Illinois earlier on in the season. They took that as an opportunity. Penn State lost to Ohio State, and they benefited from that last year, even though they ended up not beating anyone in the playoffs. But Texas, they lost to Georgia multiple times, and they took those as learning opportunities. So I'm very confident in Dan Lanning's ability to turn this into a positive. The pressure's turned up in Eugene, and pressure is a privilege, right? Like, Dan Lanning is at his best whenever his back's against the wall a little bit, and now he has an opportunity to get things cleaned up at Rutgers, at home against Wisconsin, at Iowa, and at home against Minnesota, before playing USC at home and at Washington. I think even depending on how those games go, I even think Oregon can lose one of those games, knock on wood, as long as they lose it close and look good in the other game and win the other game as well, and still make the playoff. The Big Ten is completely wide open right now because most teams have only played 3 conference games. In fact, all teams have only played 3 conference games. Obviously, right now, it's most likely looking like it's going to be Indiana and Ohio State in the conference championship game. In which, do they play? I think they do play. No, Ohio State and Indiana do not play before the end of the season. So I see us losing to Iowa and Washington now. Ducks for life. So at Iowa is a tough game, right? But Washington. Washington, I think, is very... I think that's a very winnable game for the Ducks. Granted, that's what I thought about coming into this game, but I watched the Washington game last year, and outside of Damon Williams and... what is his name? DJ Boston? Brandon Boston? They have a wide receiver. They look very mortal and very honestly average. So granted, it's a rivalry game, and that's usually a great equalizer, like we saw in the Oklahoma-Texas game today. I'm not gonna call the Washington game a loss yet. And Iowa, it's a tough place to play, and I think that game will be a lot like the Wisconsin game was last year. It's going to be tough. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be ugly. But I think the Ducks will be able to squeeze it out like they did last year. I'm not as impressed with Mark Gronowski, the Iowa quarterback, as I thought I would be. And honestly, the Iowa defense is a lot like this Indiana defense. Should we just lost a QB and 1 wide receiver? Wait, do you mean our recruiting? Oh, lost to a quarterback and 1 wide receiver. Gotcha. Okay, I see your point. Yeah, I mean, good point. That's a good point. But I mean, they were put on the ropes last night against Rutgers for 2.5 quarters. So I'm going to need to see Damon Williams really improve. And I don't think he improved a lot from last year. And coming into this year, I was really high on Damon Williams. I think he's a phenomenal athlete, and he's a running quarterback. So they've really got to clean up what they did against Fernando Mendoza today, considering how much Mendoza hurt us with his legs today. So they've got some stuff to clean up. But I'm not as impressed with Washington as I thought I would be coming into the year. But, I mean, they only allowed Ohio State to score 30 points, I think? Washington... Let's see... Yeah. I see your point for sure. So they only allowed 24 points to Ohio State. They only allowed 24 or 20 points to a really talented Maryland team. And then last night they only gave up 19 Rutgers. So their defense is really coming into their stride. I mean, really, they've only given up 24 is the most points they've given up throughout the year. So talented defense. Jeff Fish is a good coach. Jeff Fish. What's the name? Washington football. Jed Fish. Okay, I was right. I mean, he's a good coach. He's a good offensive coach. They have a lot of talent on that team with Takario Davis, and they have some good DBs. And if the mistakes that we saw on offense today aren't fixable, he can absolutely take advantage of it. He can take advantage of it. I don't know if USC has the talent on defense to take advantage of it. We don't have an elite defense like Ohio State. I agree. I agree with that. I do think our defense is better than Maryland's, though, and Maryland, gave up gave up 24 to them. So I'm thinking if they can hold Washington 24 points in that game, I think we can win that one. Really, and that's the frustrating thing today is that it's going to look like the defense gave up a lot of points, which they honestly didn't. It was really 20 points, and the offense just has to be better. So that's going to be the key moving forward is, can Will Stein adapt? Can Will Stein improve? And I don't get. It's just so frustrating because Indiana didn't do anything on defense. That was a surprise, right? Like, there were no crazy trick plays. They did their normal blitzes. They played a butt ton of zone. Like, they played cover 2. Like, it was. He did great on one drive, on the drive where the Ducks started on the 50-yard line. He got the defense moving to the side, and he got the safeties cheating down, and then they took advantage of it with the big 44-yard touchdown pass. And then just that creativity and that just kind of aggressive, like, bulldog, I call it in my head, mentality of just like, I'm going to be proactive instead of reactive. And I feel like Will Stein wasn't reacting to what the defense was doing enough, and at the same time was way too conservative in the first half. Like, I really hope the Ducks are more aggressive in the first half. I think that's been a weakness of the last 2 games, is that Will Stein's been way too conservative in the first half. Like, they have good playmakers. When Dante Moore got sacked the first play of the game, I said we were in trouble. Yeah, I that one shocked me a little bit too. I didn't think that would happen, especially on the first play. I agree that was definitely a tone setter for the rest of the game of, oh, Indiana may actually be decent. I came into this game with a lot of confidence, and honestly, the Oregon offense just didn't. I don't know what happened there. I don't know. Like, let me know what you think, but do you think the offense just underestimated Indiana? They thought that they would just be able to, like, Indiana would come into the game kind of rolled over, like, oh, you're mighty Oregon, like, we're gonna roll over to you. Like, I don't really know what to make of the attitude, and that was the biggest red flag. Is, okay, sometimes you just get beat, but the attitude on offense and the attitude on defense were not together. It was not the same offense that we saw against Penn State. It obviously wasn't the same offense and the same swagger that we saw against Oklahoma State. Like, that, the offense seemed way more hyped and way more aggressive playing against Oklahoma State. So why shouldn't you be just as aggressive against Indiana? Which, while they have a talented front seven, I still like, it's, to me, such a what if of, like, test the DBs, test the Indiana DBs. I definitely think we underestimate IU up front on defense because of the size disadvantage. Yeah, I agree. I agree. Yeah, for sure. Like, they have playmakers. Like, they have 2 guys, like I said in my preview video for the game, they have 2 guys that rank in the top 25 in tackles for loss, and that was the Kellen Wyatt, and then, oh gosh, who was the second guy? It's not Isaiah Jones, even though that's what you would think. Sorry, I gotta pull up the box score. I want to say the other guy is Aiden Fisher, who's very talented. I mean, those 3 linebacker looks that they were playing killed us on offense. Like, but again, it's a 3 linebacker look. They were playing a base 4-3 cover 2. Like, this isn't. So how you think we pan the rest of the way? So I'm optimistic, and I'm going to tell you why. I think that one of the biggest steps forward that has been made on this team that not a lot of people are giving them credit for is, I think Dan Lanning took a step forward this season. The mentality that we saw and his coaching opportunities, I think he's a better coach than he was a year ago. And I think that this is an opportunity, and I think this is a privilege that the Ducks lost. As weird as that sounds, as weird as like how anti-college football fan that statement is, like I'm not happy that the Ducks lost, but I'm thinking that this is an opportunity to be a strength that last year's team did not have going into the playoffs. I think this is absolutely still a playoff team. I'm not hitting the doomsday button. They lost a top 10 game, right? Like they lost a top 10 game at home, which hurts. The offense did not play well. The defense did, and they only lost by 10 points. Like there's a lot of bright spots that aren't going to get talked about, and Dan Lanning is one of the best coaches in getting his teams ready mentally for the game. So I think everything that was on the table 12 hours ago is still on the table right now. You know, is it going to be a little bit tougher to make the Big Ten championship? Yep, it is. I don't know if we make it to the Big Ten championship. Do we still make the playoff? As of right now, yeah. Like I don't. If we win out, which is very likely, you know, they're even if they lose one more game, I think the Ducks still make the playoff. It's all about eye test, but they so far they have proven that they still belong in that top tier of college football. We haven't seen a collapse like Florida State, right? We haven't seen a collapse like a Penn State. Like if we look at the top 5 teams, like I don't know who Oregon loses to or who the committee says is better than Oregon right now. Like Miami and Ohio State for sure. Like I'm not delusional there, but I don't know. Like we saw a lot of like. So, okay, if let's say this team loses at Iowa but beats USC and Washington at home, like I think that's absolutely a playoff resume. Like look at last year's Tennessee team. Tennessee lost to Arkansas at home, and then they our resume is pretty poopy. Yeah. It's definitely not a phenomenal resume, but I think eye test and also just I think any Big Ten 2-loss team gets in. I'm sorry, our resume would be a lot better than last year's Indiana team at 11-1. Our resume would be a lot better than last year's Tennessee team at 10-2. It'd be a lot better than you know, SMU's resume. Like I'm trying to let me pull the AP poll. Even eye test wise, we still look better than Oklahoma, and Oklahoma just they did not. Granted, John Mateer's playing with a broken hand. But I still have question marks about Texas A&M ranked at number 5. Alabama's proving that they lost to Florida State and they looked bad. I think that Oregon's going to have a rise like Alabama. Bad loss to Florida State, and then they've just gotten better ever since, and they've been playing with some injuries. Our best win was the Penn State win, and that's gone out the window. LOL. Yeah, I mean, Penn State's look like crap, but I think that's more of a... Penn State's still a talented team. It's all a mental thing. They've let one loss turn into 3, and I've talked about it a bunch of James Franklin. I don't think is a good coach at getting his team mentally prepared. I think they have a bunch of drama queens and denying down to Sutton, and that's why Drew Aller wasn't a first-round NFL draft pick last year, is because there's something about his mental psyche and his mental makeup that he's just not able to put it all together, and he's not able to frankly persevere. But I mean, I right now, even after this Indiana loss, I can't think of 11 other teams that like I think are more deserving. You know, Georgia lost to Alabama but beat Tennessee. Okay, so that's kind of null and void. Tennessee has barely hung on against Mississippi State and Arkansas today. Like, so, and they're ranked number 12. I mean, LSU has not looked good all season. They're really just benefiting on, you know, a lot of preseason hype. Oklahoma looked like crap against Texas, which Texas should not have been an unranked team, but still, they looked like crap today. Good defense, but their offense was all over the place. I have a lot of questions about Texas A&M. How far do you think we fall tomorrow? Good question. So we fall below Ole Miss. Texas Tech plays Utah tonight, right? Like or not Utah. Texas Tech plays tonight, right? Kansas, right? Yeah, they play Kansas. It's a little hard given the day isn't over. I think it's absolutely possible that we stay in the top 10, or I think we definitely stay in the top 12. Um, I don't. Even if LSU beats the brakes off of South Carolina, I don't see us dropping below LSU, and they're at 11. Um, I think Georgia can lose to Auburn. I mean, that game's really close right now, and they're ranked number. Yeah, they're down 10-0 to Auburn right now in the second quarter. Granted, Auburn can pull an Auburn and lose, but Tennessee struggled against an unranked Arkansas team. No way Oregon's dropping below them. So if I had to put money on it, right, because I know you want a definitive answer, I'm probably going to go 8 or 9. I think we drop below Texas A&M. Even if Texas A&M loses to Florida, I think we drop below Texas A&M. Obviously drop below Ole Miss, even though they struggled today. But I mean, like, Missouri lost at 14, so I'm going to go 8. My top 10 would be, let's assume all top teams win, just for simplicity's sake, that haven't lost already. So Ohio State stays at number 1. They haven't proven that they've lost it. Miami number 2. I think Indiana leaps up into 3. Even if Texas A&M beats Florida, I think Texas A&M goes up to 3. And then Ole Miss, I'm gonna put it 4, just because they struggled a little bit. And then, or no, I'm sorry. I'm probably gonna move up Indiana probably to 4. Oh man, that's a tough one. Nope. It's tough because it's what do I think and what should happen. I think the committee may put Indiana up to 3, so it'd be Ohio State 1, Miami 2, Indiana 3, Texas A&M 4, Ole Miss 5. How do you feel about our young DBs moving forward? I feel fine about Brandon Finney Jr. I think Ify Obadegwu got cooked a little bit, so I'm a little concerned about him. Sorry, I've been fighting a cold all week, so my throat's getting a little sore. But I have a lot of questions about, like, Jaden Kennedy. I don't think Jaden Kennedy played at an elite level today. He's a good nickel. I also have some concerns about Aaron Flowers. I think he's a great at playing the run, but kind of struggled a little bit playing the pass. So going forward, I think Brandon Finney Jr. proved he's legit. I think if Obadegwu, I think he just got burned, and I think it's a little bit of the same thing that we saw in offense. Of they're a young team, right? And Indiana's a very experienced team, and some days experience, no matter how young and talented you are, you just get cooked, and I think that happened today. I think if Obadegwu, again, like the rest of the team, can get that confidence back, I think he absolutely can be on the same level as Brandon Finney Jr. We've seen that earlier on in the year. But so realistically, I'm still feeling fine about them. My perspective of them hasn't changed, just because for everything that Elijah Surratt did, the other side of the field was completely shut down. Like, I don't know if you've looked at the stats, but yes, Elijah Surratt had like 134 yards, but a lot of their other receivers were completely shut down. Like, they only had 4 guys with a reception. They had Elijah Surratt with 8 receptions, 120 yards. Phenomenal game. Omar Cooper, 7 receptions, 58 yards. He had a bunch of clutch plays, but really at least 4 of those came back to back in the second quarter, and then they shut him down really a lot of the rest of the game, and he had to make some pretty heroic catches. And he's a explosive playmaker, so not really worried about that. Roman Hemby, their running back, hurt us a little bit. Okay, that was more on the linebackers. They got cooked on a couple of wheel routes. And then Riley Nowakowski, their tight end, had a bunch of those underneath BS, like underneath routes. So they really only allowed 2 guys to catch the ball. I'm not too concerned about it. Elijah Surratt's a great talent, and we have young guys, and he did just a bunch of veteran stuff. So I'm not worried about our guys, especially Brandon Finney Jr. Yes, I mentioned it earlier. I don't know if you were here for that, but that was absolutely pass interference in the first half. especially if you look at what was called throughout the course of the game and what was not called. That was consistently called later on in the game against Oregon, and I think Indiana may have gotten a couple calls too. So I think that should have been pass interference. Other than that, Brandon Finney Jr. came into this game only allowing 18% completion percentage when targeted, and today they went after him. Like, they aggressively went after Brandon Finney. They severely underestimated Brandon Finney, and he showed the entire country that he is everything as advertised. Like, he should not have made that pick six at the end of the game. Like that. I don't know if you were watching Dan Lanning's post-game press conference, but that's a really tough play. He got basically picked off like a basketball pick by the umpire in the middle of the field, had the closing speed to close in on Fernando Mendoza's only bad ball of the game. That one made me ask about our young DBs, the PA. Yeah, that did kill us. But at the same time, so I'm not mad about the Ife Obadegu call that was in the end zone, because I think that was his attempt at making a veteran play of, like Gary Danielson, the broadcaster, said, of he thinks it's only going to be a half the distance, not a place the ball on the 2-yard line. So it shows that he has that like mental ability, and that the game is slow enough to him to be able to think like, okay, I'm about to give up a touchdown, but I think it's going to be a half the distance to the goal, so let me let me do a pass interference right now, to hopefully not give up a touchdown. And ultimately, it's still better even on the 2-yard line than giving up a touchdown in that situation. It wasn't in the fourth quarter. You need to let them score so Oregon can get the ball back. It was I'd rather do this than very clearly do this than give up a touchdown. So I think the game is slow enough and the mentality is there. The one thing that I am concerned about, and again, I don't know if you've already heard this, so sorry if you did, but Ife Obadegu is very long, and we've seen a lot of guys go to the NFL, play in the SEC, play at places like Georgia under Dan Lanning, play at Auburn, and they're very long like Ife Obadegu, and they get into a handsy habit, and they're just never able to break it. And he was getting a little handsy today. And throughout the season, we've seen it kind of increase as talent has increased. So I'm hoping that's kind of a bad habit that he can shake a little bit. It's still very early in his career, so I'm not writing him off, and I'm not going to say never. Like if James Franklin has gotten 12 years at Penn State doing the exact same thing, I'm not going to write off one player 5 games into his career. So yes, the PI calls killed us. Elijah Surratt is one of the better wide receivers in the country, and there's not a lot of other teams that are going to challenge him like that. Like Texas A&M has Mario Craver and a couple of wide receivers. USC has Mekhi Lemon, the best wide receiver in all of college football right now. But I think it was just a bad game and a good quarterback. Is Fernando Mendoza plays with a level of anticipation that most other, if not all other quarterbacks in college football can't play with. Like we saw on the touchdown late to Elijah Surratt, the ball was halfway to him by the time he got his head around, and there's no coverage that can defend that. That's playing with anticipation. There's really no defense for it. So not too worried about the young guys. They're going to do young guys stuff. I don't think we can expect perfection from all these young guys. And I think today the youth just got exposed. I think that's kind of my main takeaway from this game is, yes, we thought they were all good. We thought they were beyond the young guy stuff. We thought they were all going to be freshmen playing like seniors and ultimate composure and not rattle at all and not, getting the rat poison. Hey, Jared, how you doing? Glad you're here. You see, wow, I was wrong about Oregon game today. Bucks got the W for me, though. That was definitely an elite play. Ball was in his face when he turned around, LOL. Yeah, that's Fernando Mendoza. So I had a little bit higher expectations for him coming into the year in some regards. I don't think his arm is as strong as I thought it was. It's still strong. Like we saw it on those wide throws to the outside, and Gary Danielson beat it like a drum of the hashes in college are wider, so whenever you're throwing to the wide side of the field, it's technically harder than a throw you'll make in the NFL. he had a little bit less zip on the ball, but I mean he's got enough wiggle that he hasn't. He was able to take advantage of Oregon in clutch situations. Your schedule is still very fail. I agree, Jared. I absolutely agree. I think this is still a playoff game, or playoff team. Even if they lose another game, I think it's still a playoff team. But the reality is Fernando Mendoza played with that level of anticipation all game. Like that throw to Omar Cooper, where he it was in the first half and he had like a one-handed grab and then he broke like 3 tackles while he's basically like falling somehow. That was played with anticipation, and really most of his throws are played with anticipation, and that's what makes NFL scouts drool. Is like, you understand where the receiver's going to be, you understand that it's a win from the start, and that translates into the ability to process faster. Is that you can look and you can get to your fourth read faster than guys that don't understand when a guy's open and when a guy's not open. The interception that Fernando Mendoza threw today is really the only bad ball that he threw. Like and it was partially generated because he had a guy in his face and he was falling away, and that's why it was underthrown. Technically, if there was no pressure, I think that could have been a cover 2 hole shot. I like, it would have been a really tough throw, but I think he could have made it. But because he had pressure in his face, it got underthrown, and he was he had to hit a fadeaway jumper. So that's why NFL scouts drool with the whole playing with anticipation thing. And Dante Moore at times has played with anticipation. With Penn State, he did a great job of doing that on the scramble drills, and running to the sideline and at the very last minute throwing it to his guys on scramble drills. But today Dante Moore did not show that. For all the great composure that he showed against Penn State, there was just something off today. He was more decisive than a young guy, and I'd still say like a C+ or a B in terms of decisiveness. I love that in the first half he was willing to take the check down. You saw him go read 1, read 2, check down. Love that not taking an L, not trying to scramble out and throw an interception. And I think he played really smart. I feel bad that the 2 interceptions are going to show up on the stat sheet, because really those were just gotta have it plays at the end. I think he plays smarter than that. I think he's a very smart quarterback. A lot of people love to say that quarterbacks in Will Stein's offense get their stats inflated and the completion percentages because it's a very much underneath quick hitting passing scheme. But yeah, 2 60-yard field goals and our kicker missed a 34-yarder. That was tough, man. I love Atticus Sappington so much. He's not very good. That was tough. I mean, but look, with that field goal, the game is completely different. Like, it would have been 13-10 most likely going into half, or at the very least 13-13 going into the half. And then Oregon scores a touchdown, then it's 20-13. Like, it's a completely different ballgame if Atticus hits that kick. And I really hate when people focus in on one play and they're like, "Oh, that play lost us the game." And I'm not going to say that it lost us the game, but it would have changed the whole perspective of the game, especially the second half. What did you think about your coach kicking that field goal later in the game? Was 4th and 2, didn't go for it. Yeah. So I don't want to hone in on that one specific call. The thing that's going to make me raise my eyebrow is, like Gary Danielson said on the call, the 2 plays leading up to it indicated go forward on 4th. And if you're going to do that and you get 4th and 2, you go for it, right? Like if that's your play call mentality, you go for it. I didn't have a problem with it, only curious. Yeah, man, that was so in Dan Lanning. Yeah, I agree. Like you go for it 6 times against Penn State in one of the toughest environments to play in, and then in a clutch, I can't remember the score at that point. I think it was, what was it? 17-20, something like that. Um, at home with plenty of time left. You kick the field goal after running it on second down to get to 3rd and 5. I'm gonna pull up the play-by-play because I'm really curious what the 3rd down play. I know they ran it and got to 3rd and 5. Okay, yeah, so it was 17-20. There's plenty of time left. Oh, that was still in the 3rd quarter. Dang, I didn't realize I was in the 3rd quarter. Yeah, that had to have been in the 3rd quarter because... So Jordan Davison runs it 4 yards, gets it to 3rd and 6. And then Dante Moore passes to Jordan Davison for 4 yards. So you get 4th and 2. Like, and you pass it on, like... Everything is screaming like you're going for it on 4th down. Because why would you pass it on that 3rd down if you're going for the field goal? Yeah, Ducks, I would have gone for it, but could understand, I guess. I think it just exemplifies what happened with this game. There was some breakdown between Will Stein and calling the offense, and then the managing of the game by Dan Lanning. I'm gonna be a little bit more negative here than I want to be, but it's really disappointing that you have 2 weeks to prepare for this, and I feel like the offense was not prepared. Like, you know, Indiana's going to be playing a lot of zone. You know that, like. They play more zone than any other team in the country. It's something like 80% of their defense is zone. Like, they like to play zone, and they like to bring pressure, and they like to rotate down. Like I mentioned in my video, they, you know, just because something's cover 2, they'll rotate a cornerback to play cover 2, rotate one safety down into a Tampa 2 look. Like, they didn't do anything that wasn't already on film. And they still got beat by it. Like, and they had 2 weeks to prepare. And I mean, they ran a lot of RPOs. We knew that, right? And they got beat by the RPOs. They got beat by their best playmakers and Isaiah Jones, and for a lot of the time, Omar Cooper. Right, man, 2 weeks to cook, and that's the dish you put on the table. SMH, yeah, that's a big red flag. Like, people want to get down on the DBs or on the defense. No, you need to get down on the fact that Oregon had 2 weeks to prepare, and this offense came out flat-footed. This offense was not confident. I don't know what happened with the offense. That's my biggest red flag from today. Like I've said before on this stream, whenever your defense only allows 111 rushing yards and 215 passing yards, so 326 total yards of offense to one of the top offenses in the country, with the best, arguably the best quarterback in the country, some of the best wide receivers in the country, some of the best like veteran experience. That's on the offense. I don't. It doesn't really need to be much deeper than that. Is whenever your defense gives you those opportunities, especially with so the defense literally scored points with the pick six, and then they really set up that opportunity with keeping and it's a little bit on the punter, keeping Indiana deep in their own end zone or deep in their own territory, and then Will Stein beautifully executed 3 plays for the big touchdown, but the defense really kind of generated that drive too. So really 14 of the 20 points were completely on the defense. So that's why I'm not too concerned about the DBs. They're young guys. They're going to get beat. They're going to be young sometimes, but they take these opportunities and they grow from them. That's what makes an elite defensive player, and Dan Lanning is an elite defensive coach. But yeah, like you guys are saying, you have 2 weeks to prepare, and that's the offensive output you produce. Like, that's a red flag. Defense came out, set the tone second half, 2 back-to-back 3-and-outs. Offense could do nothing. I agree. Like, the defense was playing well in the first half. They came out playing with their hair on fire in the second half. Like, they were unstoppable. No offense was going to stop them in that third quarter. Like, I'm going to pull the drive charts from the third quarter. So it was punt, 3 plays, -1 yard, punt, 3 plays, 2 yards, And then they ended up giving up a 9-play, 75-yard touchdown drive. Which credit to Indiana. Anytime the Ducks scored, they really bounced back really well. Like they in the first half it was 3-0, and then Oregon scored a touchdown, and then Indiana scored a touchdown. I knew the Hoosiers had a bunch of false starts, but as far as Oregon was concerned, did they play clean? Welcome, Rudy the Boxer. I can tell you're an Indiana fan. A huge credit to you guys. You guys played a great ball game. And then Jared, to get to your point, they had a bunch of good try today, gays. I don't know if that's supposed to say gays or guys. Okay. Oh man, I was like, that's a little aggressive. But so besides a couple of pass interference calls, there were a couple of holding penalties. Oregon finished with 7 for 64. It's fine, Rudy the Boxer. Welcome. I'm glad to have you here. There were a couple of pass interference calls, and I think that will be hotly debated. Yeah, they didn't play clean. They had some holding penalties on the offensive line. They had a snap infraction, like from a very experienced center. Even your veteran guys are making mistakes. Like Love Poncho, don't know what happened on that snap infraction. Yeah, Alex Harkey got whooped. Alex Harkey is a really hot or cold player, and I've never seen that from an offensive lineman. Like, he's either like extremely dominant, road grader, no one's gonna stop him in the run game, and then sometimes he just looks lost in pass blocking. Like, I don't really know what happens there. That definitely wasn't a good try, Rudy. You guys pulled our card today. Yeah, I mean, I really hope I'm not taking away from anything Indiana did. Indiana played a great ball game. Your coaching was phenomenal. Your veteran experience was phenomenal. Your front seven was completely disruptive and proved that you guys are absolutely in that elite level. Yeah, Indiana Nation is tired of being disrespected on the national stage. You guys earned it. You know, I really hope a lot of people start to give a crap about Indiana football. And during the broadcast, Gary Danielson was talking about Kurt Signetti, you know, wants people to give a crap about Indiana football. And honestly, before this game, I still don't think Indiana was given enough respect, and I think that this will hopefully put them on the map. Great game. I'm here just talking about the Oregon side of it, but I hope I'm not taking. I don't want to be one of those guys that's like, oh, if only Oregon would have did this, Indiana doesn't stand a chance. Like, no, that's not at all. That was a great football game. I don't know if I've said that enough. This was a great top 10 matchup. Indiana just played better. Like, good teams play well. Like, confirmed. Like, I think I love Kurt Signetti's attitude. I was actually thinking in the offseason, like, I miss Les Miles at LSU. Like a touch of crazy, but a great head coach. And I think Kurt Signetti's probably the closest to Les Miles. He's a little bit of a Les Miles, he's got a little bit of Les Miles in him. Love the passion that he shows. He's a great coach. I really hope a lot of players want to go play for him, at least players that they don't typically pull. Oregon got outplayed, outcoached, and out-schemed today. No excuses, ain't at all. I agree. They couldn't have said it better. Oregon's a very good team, and they will be just fine. I agree with that too, Rudy the Boxer. And I think that's what I like to talk about on this channel. Is I feel like most of the college football analysts out there and college football YouTube channels, they don't accept that two things can be true at the same time. And I think what you guys both just said are true. Oregon got outplayed, outcoached, and out-schemed today. Fact. Oregon is a very good team, and they'll be just fine. Fact. I don't know about your quarterback. I agree. I think he played a little bit above his skill level in the Penn State game. And today he played below his skill level. So it's all going to be about, he's a young player, and he showed his lack of experience today. I think it's all about how he recovers, right? Like, if he is a Drew Aller and clearly isn't gonna recover from this, then yeah, he has no shot, you know, in the NFL. This is one game, you know, like he's played really well through 5 games. Let's not completely poop on him. I thought you would react differently to the QB comment, Z. You mean about? You mind expanding on that a little bit, Jared? But he's a young player, like, and I think that's overall my storyline for this whole game is that this team's young, and today they looked young. I'm just saying he didn't look like the dude today. He looked and played scared. He did. Yes, I agree. I said that earlier on the stream about him questioning your QB. No, I agree. Like he looked scared today from the start. Like he looked like he just got dumped before the game. Like I don't. Our QB is just fine, but the O-line gave him no help. I agree with that. That is true. But there was just like the look in his eye running out of the tunnel today and running out of the tunnel at Penn State were completely different people. Like he looked like he just failed a math test 20 minutes before the game. Like I don't know what happened, but he was not in it. And honestly, the entire offense looked that way today. I'm not saying that, like, to me, that doesn't mean we should bench him. That doesn't mean he has no NFL future. That doesn't mean anything. I'm just saying whenever you have young guys, they're going to play above their skill level sometimes, and they're going to play below their skill level sometimes. So it's really all about, like, and I think that's what happens with guys like Anthony Richardson at the college level, is a lot of times he played above his skill level, but and people just selectively choose to not focus on that and ignore, you know, the lack of accuracy. So I'm not going to say Sane struggled to be on the same page with QBs earlier today, but ended up playing well. Yeah, I was actually watching some of the Ohio State game. Yeah, again, I think it's the same thing, and they have very, you know, Dante Moore, this was what, his 11th or 12th start. Like, he's a young guy. So it just happens sometimes. Like that's why you don't see a lot of teams play 2 true freshman running backs, 2 true freshman DBs. But he definitely looked like UCLA Dante today. Man, that was. I just, like, I don't know if I can agree with that, because before the end of the game and those not garbage time interceptions, but like, okay, tipped ball at the line, he didn't get a tip ball the entire rest of the game. Didn't make any stupid throws the rest of the game. Like, and at UCLA, he made some dumb throws. Like he showed a maturity in the first half of being willing to take the check down. I know you're funny, Dexter. I get it. And a lot of people are going to say that moving forward. So we better just get used to it. But I think he showed some very mature. Well, there you go. See, defend your QB. Thanks, Jared. I think he showed a maturity that I was surprised with in the first half. Even after the Penn State game, even in the first half of this game, I was still very surprised at his maturity, because he was patient in the first half. He took the check down. He went read number 1, read number 2 check down. Like, it wasn't just a the world is on fire, I'm gonna check down. Like, he got through reads and made, like, intelligent decisions to get to his check down. I've seen it on another video already, that's why I said it. Yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, people were even saying, like, at the Penn State game, he had moments that showed he played like UCLA Dante Moore. But, like, I think there's a maturity there. I hate to do this. He did not get a lot of help from Will Stein. I'm not putting it all on Will Stein. You know, the offensive line played like crap, and when that happens, it's hard to do anything. But Dante Moore did not get a lot of help today. And I mean, still went 21 of 34 for 1 touchdown and 2 interceptions. He ate a couple sacks that maybe he shouldn't have taken. He could have done a little bit better job of throwing the ball away, which would have helped. But again, when your offensive line is playing that poorly, there's not a lot you can do. And I think it's kind of a miracle it took until the last few minutes of the game to throw an interception. Yeah, that offensive line. And I'm going to be honest, I thought the offensive line was getting a little overhyped. Like, Isaiah World has been fine at left tackle, but I think a lot of people were acting like he's like an All-American. Will called that game like he took Indiana to win and cover. Yeah, right. Um, I defer you guys, you guys Ducks for. I'm a Bucks fan, but I found the channel and Z is cool, so I'm sticking around. Hello. Yeah, Jared's cool. He's our friendly Buckeyes fan. Um, but I think the biggest thing is, can the Ducks recover from this? And that's going to be whether they, what separates them from being a good team or a great team or an elite team or actually makes them a playoff contender. And they were never tested like this last year, right? Like they played a close game against Ohio State. They were tested early on in the Idaho game. And every time they were slightly tested like that, they really benefited from it and really took it and ran with it. And so I think this team has a good mentality. I think Dan Lanning is way better than James Franklin at getting his team ready and taking these for learning opportunities. Come on in, bro. We're just chatting, LOL. Yeah, Jared's awesome. He was hanging out with me all last stream. Yeah, I mean, the Buckeyes looked good against Illinois today. Yeah, they're a really good team. I mean, they faced some adversity in that game, but still, I mean, what, they won by 20 points or whatever on the road at Illinois. I feel bad you guys are getting stuck in the big noon kickoff slot next week too. At Wisconsin, or is Wisconsin at home? Ohio State football schedule. Yeah, Penn State lost to Northwestern at home. At home. I'm gonna say it one more time. At home to Northwestern. Like, that's just. So I talked about it in the Penn State live stream, and so yes, James Franklin has a $56 million buyout. So to get traditionally fired, not likely. However, the mutterings are that it can happen, that there can be a mutual partings of ways. What that exactly looks like, I don't know. I know that these schools and these lawyers are really strong and really powerful at getting stuff like this to just kind of magically work out. Yeah, Penn State spirit's completely broken. Like they and that's just a sign of bad coaching. So there is what the journalists like Pete Thamel and people are saying is that if there is a mutual parting of ways, that's a good question. I think he's an offensive coach, right? James Franklin. I think he's an offensive coach. Yeah, his background is an offense. He was a quarterbacks coach at Maryland, quarterback coach at Kansas State, wide receiver coach with the Packers, frequently a wide receiver coach, which is hilarious considering the lack of wide receiver talent that they've been able to put on the field in recent years. Granted, they have Chris Godwin, they have Jahan Dotson, they've produced some wide receivers, but lately, yeah, Vanderbilt was his last stop before Penn State. But in the Penn State live stream, I thought there was no way the Indiana Ohio State Big Championship is going to be a good one, though. Yeah, I agree. I think that'll be a really good game. In the Penn State live stream, I was saying there's no way that James Franklin gets bought out for $56 million, which I agree. If they can't get it below that $56 million number, I think there's no way. James Franklin looks like a broken man, and so they may just mutually part ways, which would only be a $2 million buyout, and Penn State has that in spades. Like, they've got that floating around in cash. So I think I think I only gave it like a 30% chance that James Franklin gets fired or isn't at Penn State next year. I think that's moved up to probably 60% in my mind, after hearing the talk that was going around the program after the UCLA loss, and I haven't even read anything after this Northwestern loss. Like, I mean, when I type in James Franklin, the first thing is, his buyout information. James, I would hold out and make him. I agree. Yeah. Oh yeah, same. It's same thing with Dabo Sweeney. But the problem with, and I agree, and I think I would do the exact same thing, and I think that's the more likely scenario. Is Rudy still here? 1988. Um, but the only kind of devil's advocate argument to that is let's say James Franklin, like, he leaves Penn State right now, or he leaves at the end of the season. And what if there's another Power Four school, like an Oklahoma State, or what if there's a Virginia Tech, or what if there's an Arkansas, that's like, you know what, he hasn't done enough bad yet to like make me not even like consider him, so let me consider him for a Power Four head coaching job. It's like, to what extent does it take for Penn State to be a complete dumpster fire, which they are right now, but a prolonged dumpster fire, to make it so that he's not even in consideration for a Power 4 head coaching job? You know, like, he signed a 10-year contract in what, 2021? Or James Franklin coaching contract. Yeah, he has a 10-year contract with Penn State through 2031. Through the 2031 season. What's up, just came back. Right now we're talking about the dumpster fire, aka Penn State, and his buyout and how likely he is to get fired. I could definitely see a bottom tier SEC team picking up Franklin if he parts. Exactly. Like, I think if he leaves now, or if he leaves at the end of the season, I think he's in contention for the Arkansas job. I think he'd be a great Oklahoma State hire. Maybe Oklahoma State's not even good enough for him at that point. Virginia Tech would be a great job for him. Somebody like Mississippi State would love winning. Exactly. Like, teams like that, if he leaves now, he proves that he can still elevate a team to at least 10 wins a year, something like that. If he puts on another season like last year, and think about all the talent he's losing this year. Rudy the Boxer. So it's funny you say that. I was thinking Florida, but I'm a Florida grad, so I'm like, dear God, please no. Please don't go from Billy Napier to James Franklin. I can't mentally handle that. I can't emotionally handle going from Billy Napier to James Franklin. Like, logically, I agree. Yes. I think if he leaves now, he's still very much in contention for the Florida job. Emotionally, please no. I'm not going to put that juju out into the world. Dude, Fickle is getting stomped. No, I don't see him at Florida. They're used to natties, lol. I mean, yeah, but I mean, look at, they went and got Billy Napier from Louisiana. I'm checking the score of the Florida game now. It was 14-21 at the half. Like, dude, Fickle's getting stomped by 30 by Iowa. Yeah, I feel bad. Fickle needs to be fired. I thought he would have been fired a couple of weeks ago. I think Fickle's gone after this game. Wouldn't it be funny though? I mean, what do you guys think about like James Franklin at UCLA? Like, wouldn't that be hilarious? Although, I mean, with UCLA, they won a big game today. Who'd they beat? New Heisel. UCLA. Yeah, Iowa is decent. But the fact that Iowa scores 30 points, I think that's the bigger surprise. I mean, UCLA whooped Michigan State, and I thought Michigan State was decent. This year. They showed a lot more fight, bro. That would be comical, right? James Franklin, UCLA, 30 points better. Yeah, I agree. I don't know if UCLA, or I don't know if Iowa's 30 points better than Wisconsin. At least I didn't think so coming into this game. Do you guys think Neuheisel keeps the job at UCLA? No, they've been scoring this year. Yeah, they had been doing better. Iowa Hawkeyes football. Dang, they're up 30-0 on Wisconsin. Like, yeah, I mean, besides the Iowa State and Indiana games, I mean, they put up 38 on Rutgers, and I don't think Washington put up 38 on Rutgers last night, right? Oh, they put up literally 38. So technically, Rutgers and Iowa scored the same number of points against a decent Rutgers defense. Like, I'm not. Rutgers is a lot better than people are giving them credit for. I'm telling you, man, I see Iowa's giving us problems after that Indiana game. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if enough people are giving Iowa credit for playing Indiana close, and maybe after this Oregon game, maybe by the transitive property, you know, the UCF math of winning a national championship, maybe people will give Iowa a little bit more credit. The thing is at least in the Indiana game, through 5 games in 2025, Iowa Hawkeyes offense, total offense 327 yards. Yeah, I'll pull up the NCAA stats. Team stats, total offense. Okay, so this includes games that happened last night but not today. Iowa is... When was the last time Indiana beat OSU? Sorry, but he opposed my Iowa take. Answer 1988. Oh, man. Man, where's Iowa? You gotta be there, right? Where are they? Yeah, so Iowa's offense has definitely improved, right? From last season, they have more potential, there's more potential energy there to be an explosive offense than we've seen in recent years. And I think, oh gosh, what's the Iowa coach's name? He's been at Iowa forever, but I think he deserves a lot of. LOL, Indiana traditionally is the worst. Yeah. Just for the record, Indiana's statistically the worst college football program in history, but they look great today. I'm not taking anything away from Ferentz. Thank you, Kirk Ferentz. But it's like I watched the Illinois. So I watched the Indiana Illinois game, and I watched the Indiana Iowa game. And the reason I was a little bit more confident coming into this game was there were a lot of like blown coverages. Like I thought those games were more the other team being bad and in Indiana being not necessarily good, but they proved today that Indiana's a very good team. But yeah, I mean, I'm not concerned about the Iowa offense, at least when it comes to the Oregon Ducks, because again, I think the Ducks defense played fine. He passed Woody for most Big Ten wins. Oh, Kirk Ferentz. He's an impressive coach. He's a good coach. And in Oregon's last 2 games, it's kind of felt like whoever made the first turnover, because the teams are so well coached, it felt like whoever made the first big mistake, like a turnover, that was going to cost the game. And it did in the Penn State game. Technically didn't in this game because of the pick 6, obviously. Sorry, forgot my train of thought there with that one. But at least when it comes to the Iowa and Oregon, Iowa held the Indiana offense to 20, bro, and we couldn't. I'm scared. It's at Iowa, so it's at Iowa in 2 weeks. No, 3 weeks. So in 3 weeks, it's at Iowa. They have at Rutgers next week, which will be tough. That's on Saturday, right? We haven't gotten any. I bet one of these will be a Friday night game, and that kind of scares me a little bit. Yeah, I agree. It is concerning after what happened today. Indiana played at Iowa. Yeah. So I'm gonna play devil's advocate. Ducks for life. So you're saying we couldn't, and so Iowa held Indiana to 20. I'm gonna say Oregon did too, because the last 10 points I'm gonna say are basically garbage time points, right? So I like at least the defense, I think held on paper didn't hold Indiana to 20 points. But the defense played extremely well today. They got screwed over by the offense, literally not being able to do anything. You guys can definitely beat them at the house Caitlin Clark built. I like Caitlin Clark. We stand Caitlin Clark on this channel. But yes, she did build that house. Now, I will say, if the offense can't do anything against Iowa, then yeah, we will be in trouble. And Kirk Ferentz is a good defensive coach. Right? It's like I like Clayton Clark. I hope there's an NBA player in the future named Clayton Clark. If Will Stein can't figure out how to get DeCorian Moore open against zone coverage, then yeah, whatever her name is. But yeah, if I mean, DeCorian Moore doesn't have more than 4 touches against Iowa, yeah, I don't. In fact, against anyone, if DeCorian Moore doesn't have more than 4 catches for 39 yards, we'll see what happens when Oregon plays a good defense. I think we can say that Indiana's a good defense. I'm not going to say that. I mean, they came into this game with a top 10 defense, right? In terms of total defense? Yeah, so they came into this game top 5 in total defense, only giving up 221 yards of offense. So I think this team Indiana definitely qualifies as a good defense, especially with the Sadiq touch. Yeah, Will Stein has to be better. Will Stein has to be better with a game plan. He has to be better being able to adapt at halftime. I haven't been as impressed with his halftime adjustments, and Dan Lanning I think pointed that out in his with his post-game press conference. It's he was saying Indiana made better halftime adjustments. I was trolling Iowa fans with that one a few weeks ago. Yeah, I agree. So that was the person I heard say a few weeks back that you guys are better than last year. Ooh, good question, Jared. So the question is Oregon still better than they were last year? I'm going to say yes. I think they'll definitively prove it if they can bounce back. But because I think this is a young team, and I think the ceiling is way higher than last year's team's ceiling was. And I think Dan Lanning's a better coach than he was a year ago. I think overall the defense is better than they were a year ago. If we were concerned about the secondary today, last year's secondary would have gotten cooked. Love those guys. Our secondary has not been good the last few years. So the defense has improved, the coaching's improved, there's a higher ceiling on offense, even if we have a bunch of young guys that are going to play like young guys from time to time. So I think yes, I think the team is still better than they were a year ago. I think Indiana is better than they were a year ago. And I think that's what caused the loss today, is Indiana got better. I think last year Oregon probably would have been better, probably. But definitively today, Indiana was a better team. But if Oregon would have played like they did against Penn State, it would have been a completely different ballgame. You know, like I don't think like Indiana's in a class above Oregon, and I don't think Oregon's in a class below Indiana right now. Like they're still very much in the same class. Is Naheem starting / playing? He flipped from OSU. You probably remember that. Yes. So Naeem offered. He had a few tackles, and he plays on kickoffs, which I'm a little interested in because that's kind of burning a red shirt. He did not register a tackle, but I know I saw him on kickoffs, and I'm surprised he's not redshirting with Mackay. That kind of makes me wonder if Mackay is actually going to transfer. And if Mackay transfers, I don't know if Naeem transfers. For those of you that don't know, Naeem Offord is a 5-star DB who is committed to Ohio State and then flipped at the last minute to Oregon. And he is the brother of highly touted transfer Mackay Hughes, who is a running back from Tulane. And was a preseason All-American, and since lost his job, frankly, to the talented Ducks freshman, and has announced that he's going to redshirt this year, which typically means that they're going to transfer as well, but he hasn't officially announced the transfer part. I think that's interesting. The Johnson kid in the secondary is cheeks. I'm sorry, the Johnson kid. Johnson? Oh, Theron Johnson? Yeah, I was disappointed in him. I thought he would be better. Like whenever he played in the spring game, I thought he was gonna be really good. He's big, he's physical. I liked that he got beat by the back shoulder and then was able to recover from it. That shows experience. But yeah, I think that's another swing and a miss in the transfer portal, which we haven't really seen from Dan Lanning. Like he's really hit with guys like Bear Alexander, obviously Dylan Gabriel, Christian Gonzalez. Let's not forget about Christian Gonzalez. But yeah, Theron Johnson, definitely not on the same level as Brandon Finney Jr. and Ifeoma Badegwu. I like the experience that he brings. Yeah, so far pretty disappointed with him. I know he was injured a lot though in the offseason, so I don't know if maybe that is part of his issues. But today he was just getting beat. But that's part of what I was talking about earlier, is that I don't think the Ducks defense was playing aggressive enough early. Like they were blitzing later on, but in the first quarter they were playing a lot of really soft zone or soft man coverage. Wow, getting old or distracted with football or both. I just ran a load of laundry with no clothes or anything on the washer. Oh my god. Okay, that's funny. That's really funny. Oh man. That's funny. I feel like, yeah, life's just been chaotic lately, so I get it. Also, football is life, so I mean, it's technically it's really justified to get distracted by football. Ducks for life. If you've been with my channel for a while, you guys know I have a man crush on Trey McNutt. Like, I'm just gonna put it out there. I think he's a phenomenal player. I think he's a phenomenal human being. I've heard he's close to coming back. I think he's really close. He's a freak athlete. He's really smart. He's a great human being. If you haven't already, go check out my video on him that I posted in the off season. He got a rule change to the Ohio High School Athletic Association rules about being able to compete in 7-on-7 competitions, and put his senior year on the line, really in hopes of getting that privilege back for Ohio athletes, and he got the rule changed. So I love Trey McNutt. He's from Shaker Heights, Ohio, which is in Cleveland. He's a freak athlete. I think he could be a two-way player if he chooses to be, and if the Ducks coaching staff lets him be. I would love to see him make an impact on offense as well. He's got nuance as a route runner, makes great breaks on the ball. He's arguably the most athletic DB in Oregon's backfield right now, in Oregon's secondary. Like that's how highly I think of him. So I agree. I'm upset Trey McNutt broke his leg late in fall camp, right? Like I think it was in July or August. But love Trey McNutt. Can't wait to get him back. They may redshirt him, may not. I was really impressed with Blake Purchase today. I think Blake Purchase played well for the younger guys. So it's as much as we want to talk about the secondary being shaky, or Aaron Flowers was fine. He made a couple of big tackles, made a couple of mistakes. Again, young player, right? Me too, man. I love Trey. Love Trey, man. Like I'm hoping one day he sees my video and he'll reach out and he'll want to do an interview or come on the channel. That's like my current YouTube goal. McNutt, dude's dad or relative was a Buckeye. Question: what's going to happen to Oregon when Phil Knight dies? Good question. So the thing is Phil Knight loves Oregon so much. First of all, he's going to do whatever it takes for Oregon to win a national championship before he dies. Like we're seeing this increase every year with the amount of money that he's willing to spend. He's going to do whatever it takes. If Oregon does not win a national championship, or what happens when Phil Knight dies, I think he's willed it for sure. If not, his family, I think, will be under the understanding that it's what he would have wanted, is to continue supporting Oregon athletics at the same level, and not just football. He wants the track program to be a world-renowned thing. He wants their track facility to continue hosting the world championships and the Olympic trials. That is a solid question, Rudy. NIL way downhill then, right? I don't think so. and especially I don't think it'll be a discernible difference given the revenue sharing and revenue sharing cap. I don't think there's going to be a big, you won't notice it. And again, I think Ducks for Life is right. I think Oregon will be willed in, so I'm not too worried about it. Does he have children? He does, I believe. Phil Knight. He has to, right? Yep, he has 2, including Travis Knight, who's a lead animator and current CEO for the stop-motion animation studio Leica, which has made films I've never heard of. Nike will never stop making money, and therefore Oregon is forever good. LL, yeah. So it looks like Phil Knight has a son who lives in Hillsboro, which is basically Portland. And so yeah, I bet Oregon's willed in. So I don't. The only way that I think people will notice a difference is because I think the spending before Phil Knight dies, I think will get absurd. Like I don't think we've even seen the limits that he's willing to spend to make this happen. I mean, Phil Knight just made a huge, was it a $2 billion donation to the hospital in Portland? Phil Knight beat cancer donation. I think it was $2 billion. Yeah. Maybe there were Oregon State fans like Herb Street had a child who plays for Michigan. Yeah, and didn't one of Herb Street's kids also go to Clemson? Which I get going to the team up north. I get that's a lot different than going to Clemson, but yeah. So Phil Knight this offseason just made a $2 billion donation to the OHSU Knight Cancer Institute. OHSU is it's the hospital that's technically in Portland, but it was originally the University of Oregon Medical School, and then it broke off, I believe, in the 1950s. But it's still like there's the Knight Cancer Institute, there's the Knight Cardiovascular Institute. Like Phil Knight donates a ton of money to OHSU in kind of the whole like perpetuity of it. It's also part of the University of Oregon, and it's in Portland, and that's basically where the Nike headquarters are. And he had another who played for OSU. Yeah, all of his kids have ridden the bench. So his family and his legacy is very much tied to the state of Oregon. I think he'll make sure that Oregon is taken care of. And so where I was going with the $2 billion donation part is like, I think Phil Knight's just going to start throwing money around like it's going out of style. I think Oregon will be fine. And Phil Knight and Travis Knight and Phil Knight's other kid will take care of it. Like Phil Knight in Oregon, people literally call Phil Knight Uncle Phil. Like, he's just seen as this like huge community member. He's so important here. He loves Oregon. That's why he wanted to keep Nike here and really grow Nike here. So Nike loves Oregon and Oregon loves Nike, so I don't see that changing anytime soon. You will definitely be fine for decades. I agree. I really hope they can do it before Uncle Phil leaves us, man. I agree. Phil Knight deserves it. He's a great human being, and everything that he's given to the University of Oregon, he deserves it. And truly, with Dan Lanning, I don't think anyone in this chat, Buckeye alike, Hoosier alike, Duck alike, I don't think any of us disagree that the Ducks, it's a matter of when they win a championship, not if, at this point, right? Even after today, I'm still not sold that they can't win a championship this year. Like today, they lost a top 10 game. Like you play enough top 10 teams and you find out, you lose a game. So, and in today's college football, it's going to happen. Look at Ohio State last year. They lost 2 regular season games, and they got hot at the right time, and they put everything together at the right time, and they learned from those losses, and they learned you don't run into Kenneth Grant and Miles Graham, and you learn that you force feed Jeremiah Smith no matter what happens, and they learn from it, and they won a championship because of it. So it's one loss, and they played well. We didn't get the breaks beaten off of us like we did against Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. Now, if Oregon has a collapse like Penn State has had, Exactly. I agree, Ducks for life. And I kind of was worried about that coming into it. Is I wonder if there was a little bit of rat poison, like Nick Saban likes to say. Is did the team buy into the hype a little bit? I don't. I ultimately don't think so because of the way that the offense, they came out flat-footed. I like they didn't look like a team that got the rat poison. And for those of you that don't know, that was Nick Saban's term whenever his teams would be, ranked number one or very much the favorite to win the national championship, and then they would lose a game that they shouldn't have. He would say that they got the rat poison. But and I lost $650 today. That's tough. I'm sorry. RIP to your $650. Oof, lost $1,500 last year in the Rose Bowl. Man, I was not confident enough to bet $1,500 in the Rose Bowl last year. Yeah, I haven't sports bet. I think it's interesting, but I don't sports bet. Thought about getting into it, just throwing like $5 around, but this team, who was the player last year in Oregon that said Oregon was going to take over the Big Ten? Are you talking about Tez Johnson, who's on the Buccaneers, and after the Penn State game, he said that they would take over the Big Ten? Is that what you're... Tez Johnson said that a couple of weeks ago after the Penn State win. Love Tez Johnson, by the way. Yep, Tez Johnson for the Buccaneers. And then they also have Bucky Irving, so love the Buccaneers. Yeah, and honestly, Dan Lanning was saying that he said that Dante Moore was, the best quarterback in college football, and I think he absolutely can still be that. Like, Fernando Mendoza's been more consistent. Maybe I'm delusional. Maybe I'm biased. I think Dante Moore, at his ceiling, can still play better than that. I'm a Duck for life, man. I wouldn't care if we was playing the Kansas City Chiefs. Guess who I'm betting with? That's why I love college football. It's like just a dash of like, I'm going to say overconfidence. Yeah, I agree. That's part of what makes college football so great, is it defies all logic and reason. And at the end of the day, these are 18 to 22-year-olds. Anything can happen on any given day. I have no idea if Dante Moore's girlfriend actually broke up with him this week. That's what he looked like coming into the stadium. Yeah, I bet with my heart. Sorry, guys. Hey, I mean, that's what makes college football so great, right? And that's why we all love it, and that's why you guys are all hanging out with me, for two hours, on a Saturday night, as we're all just hanging out having fun, and we love our teams. And but I don't want to be like the other YouTube channels, and we're gonna see on mass media and hit the panic button and bench Dante. No, Dante Moore could honestly still win the Heisman. If he has good games going down the stretch, he's still very much in Heisman contention. If this game learns from this, Michigan gonna lose tonight. I'm gonna say yes. I'm not sold on Michigan. I'm not sold on their defense. I think Bryce Underwood's good. I don't know if he's enough to carry that team against USC. I think USC's been underrated, and I think Michigan's been overrated. I think USC is going to beat Michigan tonight. I'm excited to watch that game. Southern Cal driving now. Is it? I'll pull up the score. Man, Georgia's still down 10-3. USC is up 27. Yeah, so I hadn't even seen the score. I wasn't sold on Michigan. So I like USC in that one. Texas Tech, they're letting Kansas hang out. I don't like that one. I was sold on Texas Tech, so I'm a little surprised. But Kansas I think is also an underrated team. Florida, Texas A&M, that looks like a good game on right now. So I'm going to talk about Florida for a minute. I think Billy Napier will most likely, as of right now, still be around at the end of the year. Because, if you guys watched the Florida-Texas game last week, it didn't feel like an upset. It didn't feel like one of those games where, by far, the lesser talented team is hanging around with the more talented team. It didn't feel like a David versus Goliath, and David is just getting lucky, right? It felt like Florida belonged in that game. And right now, it feels like Florida belongs in this Texas A&M game. So it's always just been a matter of coaching, and at the same time, that's what would make Billy Napier be fired, is that he has the talent and he just can't convert it into wins. But this is proving that he can hang around with Mike Elko, who right now is being talked about as one of the best coaches in all of college football. And so, I mean, the Gators are hanging around with Texas A&M at Kyle Field at night. Like that's a job saver just in itself. Granted, they just kicked a field goal to make it 17-24. But especially if Florida comes back to win this game, which I think is absolutely doable. DJ is looking good, 16 of 28 with 2 tutties. Jaden Baugh, I mean, that's a tough defense. So cool. All right. I guess so. Big Ten is wide open. I agree. Especially if so. Like, let's look at the Big Ten standings right now. There's a bunch of teams with 1 loss. Ooh, voice crack. Sorry, I've been sick this week, so my throat's getting sore. So I'm gonna blame that on that one. So Indiana, Ohio State right now are both undefeated. Come on, sort it by rankings. And then if Michigan loses, so then Indiana, Ohio State will be the only undefeated teams. Is it possible that both those teams win out? Absolutely. Is it likely? Probably. But if we look at teams that right now have 1 loss, it would be Michigan. It would be Washington, which is a talented team. It would be USC, which is obviously a talented team. Northwestern's a talented team. Nebraska's better than a lot of people will give them credit for. Technically Iowa and Minnesota. Iowa's a good team. Minnesota, yeah. So Big Ten is still wide open. You know, teams lose. I'm not going to bet on Ohio State to lose. And if Indiana even plays like they did today, and today wasn't even their best football, they're not going to lose the rest of the way out. It would just be, like I said before, OSU may need Michigan to drop 2. Yeah, and so do you mean 2 more? Because so Michigan if Michigan loses today, and then who does Michigan moving forward? But I mean, so Michigan plays Washington. That's a losable game. Michigan plays Maryland at Maryland. I could see the head coach of Maryland, who I really like, and I wish I could think of his name right now. Oh man, I can picture him. Maryland football coach. I want to say Lovie Smith, but it's not. It's Mike Locksley. Mike Locksley can get his team ready and beat Michigan at home. And then obviously Ohio State. So they have at least 3 losable games left on their schedule. So yeah, I agree, Jared. The Big Ten is completely wide open. So, and Oregon, if OSU and Michigan each have 1 loss, Michigan would have head-to-head tiebreaker. True. That is true. And it's at the Big House, which is tough. So, who do you think... I know we talked about it last week. Who do you think Ohio State is most likely to lose to moving forward? Like, they have Penn State at home. But, I mean, Indiana might go on. I agree. Even if Indiana plays a fraction of what they played today against their remaining schedule. Oh, I see your point. Okay, so if Michigan wins out except loses today, and if Ohio State wins out except loses to Michigan, you're saying Michigan would have the tiebreaker. Got it. Sorry about that. Penn State, not a threat to me now, honestly. I agree. I think they're completely checked out, if I'm being honest. I think they're going to have players jumping ship rather quickly. With the attitudes they have on that team, I wouldn't be surprised if they have some of their star players opt out and start to get ready for the NFL draft. If not now, relatively soon, right? I mean, it's the middle of October. It's going to be past the middle of October, and Penn State will not have beaten a Power 4 team. They have beaten Florida International. They have beaten Villanova and Kennesaw State, right? So 2 FBS teams and an FCS team. And moving forward. Oh man. Penn State has to go on the road to Iowa next week. Yeah, good luck trying to right the ship at Iowa. Then they go to the Shoe. Oh, they get a bye week and then go to the Shoe to play Ohio State. Man, then they get Indiana at home back-to-back weeks. Like, there's... So, they have, what, 3 wins, right? But only 2 against FBS opponents. And so, to get bowl eligible, you have to have 6 wins against FBS opponents. So, they have to get 4 wins against Iowa, Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State, Nebraska, Rutgers. So they have to beat at least one of Iowa, Ohio State, and Indiana to make a bowl. And that's assuming they beat Michigan State, which, again, I think they're a dangerous team. They have to beat Nebraska, which, again, isn't a gimme. And they have to go on the road to Rutgers, and I don't think that's a gimme. So Penn State, man, if they especially if they drop their next 2, they may not even end up bowl eligible. And they may have players jumping ship. Like, this may be a complete dumpster fire. Going from number, 2 overall to start the year to a not even making a bowl. Like, I think that's unlikely, but it's certainly possible. So I'm going to ask you guys right now in the chat, if you guys had to put money on it, who's making the Big Ten championship right now? I'll wait a few minutes before I give my answer. Ohio State, Oregon. I like it. Yeah, so just looking at everyone's schedule, I think there's a decent... I think it's more than likely than not that Indiana goes undefeated. Oh man, that's tough. I'm a little worried. What is the scenario? What is the tiebreaker scenario of Michigan wins out, Ohio State wins out, or no, I'm sorry, Michigan loses today and then wins out. Ohio State wins out, loses to Michigan, Oregon wins out. So like, I don't know enough about how the tiebreakers would work in that scenario of, like, would Oregon advance to the Big Ten title just because they only lost to Indiana? Penn State and Maryland will beat Hoosiers. I could see it. I mean, the thing is, Penn State has talent. It's just if that talent decides to show up or not. And ever since they lost to Oregon, they haven't decided to show up. They got screwed over by Andy Kotelnicki being super conservative in the first half of the Oregon game. And then James Franklin doesn't have the mental fortitude or doesn't have the chops to right his ship. Like teams like Kurt Signetti can, Dan Lannon can. And Ryan Day obviously did last year and won a national championship by doing it. So it's Terrapin scored like 24 unanswered versus Washington. Yeah, that Maryland team is sneaky. Sneaky. Do they have Maryland on their schedule? No. Okay. Yeah, I in my head I've kept thinking that Oregon plays Maryland, but they actually play Minnesota. So I think pretty. I don't think this is argumentative, or I don't think this is really arguable. I think Oregon has the more favorable schedule out of Indiana, Ohio State, and Oregon. I think pretty by far. I think Oregon has the easiest schedule remaining. Just because they really only have USC and Washington left, and the at Iowa's tough. But I mean, both Indiana and Ohio State have Penn State on their schedule. They both have Maryland, right? Indiana, Hoosiers football. Yeah, they both have Maryland. They both have Penn State. Um, yeah, me too. It hurts my head, and I've never really checked the math. I'm just kind of like, yeah, I believe it, sure. So I think Oregon has the easier schedule. So I think they're probably more likely to make it, but I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being Indiana, Ohio State. Right now, I don't think I can bet against either of those teams, so I think I'm probably going to have to say it's Indiana, Ohio State. And if it's not those two, I think it's probably... I think Ohio State has the chops to win out, so I would probably go Oregon, Ohio State, if I had to pick right now. So that's where I'm at with the who can beat Oregon. So in broad terms, regular season. Realistically, I personally only think USC and Washington. I think it's really only USC has the chops to definitively have a chance to beat Oregon. I think Iowa's a tough place to play. I think Washington's a tough place to play. I just think that even if Oregon plays like they did today, I think Oregon has so much more talent than Iowa or Washington. So I think realistically the only game that I'm like, yeah, USC could beat Oregon. So that's who I'm going with regular season. If Oregon plays the way they did against Penn State, I don't know if there's a team in college football that can beat them. Maybe Ohio State, but I think they could beat Miami if Oregon plays up to its potential. If Oregon gets into that Ohio State kind of buzzsaw, we're unstoppable, no one's going to beat us mentality, I'm going I think Oregon has the potential to do that. It's just going to be, I just hope they can figure out how to scheme DeCorian Moore open against zone coverage. That's what I have to say about not being able to get DeCorian more touches against zone coverage. It's a straightforward thing. You should have those in your playbook. I think you're winning out. So Big Ten title appearance would depend on if Indiana drops 1 or 2. They will certainly drop 1. I say 2. Yeah, I like the confidence. I would love Oregon to make the Big Ten title. It'd really solidify, Oregon making it back to the playoff. I think if Oregon loses the second one, I think overall they most likely still make it, but it makes the waters a little murkier. It looks like USC is going to beat the brakes off Michigan, which I have never really bought into Michigan this season, even after the way that they played Oklahoma. Who did you say is playing? I'm gonna say, I forget what I actually said. I don't think I can bet against Indiana Ohio State right now, so I'm gonna go Indiana Ohio State. Neither of them has given me any amount of reason to say, oh yeah, you're not capable of winning out. I don't think anyone in their right mind is able to. ZACH, thank you for asking. ZACH. So I can't bet against Ohio State and Indiana right now, especially after what happened today. And Ohio State, they look unbeatable. There were 3 plays today against Illinois that I'm like, you may be beatable. But Ohio State's phenomenal. Do you think Ohio State's better than last year? Overall? I agree. I think their defense is more consistent Probably about the same level of talent, at least, if not better. If you said the Ohio State defense is more talented this year, I'm not going to argue with you. You know, obviously, Jeremiah Smith is Jeremiah Smith, right? Carnell Tate's playing out of his mind, and I think has taken some more steps away from being that young player that we saw last year. This is probably gonna be a hot take. Yeah, saying he's more explosive than Will Howard was. And then Carnell Tate, he's more explosive than Emeka Egbuka. I love Emeka Egbuka. But I think Carnell Tate's definitely more explosive than he is. Saying not turning it over Howard. Oh, interesting. I didn't realize that was an issue with Howard. But I think for a young quarterback, I think Julian Sayin is playing about as well as you can expect. Like you said, he's not turning it over. He's managing the game. He's getting it to those players, like getting it to those explosive playmakers. So, yeah, I agree. I think Ohio State can be better. So I guess I'm trying to think of a question of like who like. So how many teams from the Big Ten makes it to the playoff? You guys think 3? Oof. Howard threw back in like 5 straight games mid-season. Yikes. I think ultimately, no matter, like, as long as no team goes in with more than 3 losses, I think Oregon, Indiana, Ohio State, Oregon, Indiana, Ohio State all make the playoff. As long as they're all going in with 1 or 2 losses each. At the very least 3 teams. The SEC, I think, is going to be a little bit cannibalized. SEC football standings. Like, we're already kind of seeing the SEC get cannibalized a little bit. But they're... Okay, so I know there's going to be a little bit of bias in this chat, but who's better, the Big Ten or the SEC? And whether that to you means top-end talent or overall depth. I will type this on here. So, Big Ten or SEC. Because I don't think the 10's getting enough respect, and I think the SEC is getting too much hype. Like, Kentucky's really bad. Let's say there's Kentucky versus Northwestern, Kentucky versus Purdue. I think like the worst team in the Big Ten is the worst team in the SEC. I think the Big Ten has more elite talent. Like, I don't know. Well, conducting other balance, but Big Ten better, I say. Okay. Yeah, my throat's getting sore, and I've been sick all week too. Always make sure you guys like and subscribe. I think I'm gonna do more live streams during the week, so make sure to turn on those post notifications. It's probably gonna be about 5 or 6 p.m. On probably midweek, think Wednesday, Thursday. Yeah, please like, subscribe, and I will see you guys next week. And yeah, thank you guys so much. Bye. Catch you soon, Jared.